Well, I think they'll be better prepared. This is their first real trip into an environment like Columbus, right? So for this team, the strength of schedule is what it was, right? Yeah. It probably was much lower than that. Would probably have been in the 90s had they not played Ohio State. So and where Michigan ended up, what Michigan ended up doing. So you can argue about the strength of schedule, but you won't find anyone that will tell you that when they saw that schedule 6 months ago, oh yeah, Indiana will be right there competing for a Big Ten title and being the first 12-team playoffs. What he's done is been remarkable, and I'll go back a little bit and talk about this Ohio State game, because where Ohio State got to him was particularly on the offensive side. They had the special teams blunders. We can get, that happens in some of these games. But Ohio State started to bring more pressure. And the pressure became a problem because there was some inconsistency. There wasn't some communication that was going on between the backs and the tight ends. They would pick up a stunt early in the game. It was picked up perfectly. They came back and ran that identical stunt later, and they got home. Indiana tried to come across the line or across the formation with a tight end to block one of their defensive ends one-on-one. Timing was off. Player blew right by him, blew the whole play up. So there were plays that happened in that game that really kind of changed the tide of that game. This is a team that can play possession football and can play field position, and that's what they found themselves in, a situation where they needed to play field position, but that's where special teams kind of hurt them. What'll be interesting is this Notre Dame defense brings pressure because they have to. They got to bring pressure because they're not getting home with 4. So is Ellison, the running back from Indiana, he's got to be able to have his head on a swivel to know where the pressure's coming from and to be able to help instead of trying to get out into the route. I think the other thing that happens, we're going to probably see Notre Dame probably see a lot of crossing routes because they're playing man. And when you look at them versus USC, that got them in trouble. The communications part of that got them in trouble. And they really needed that offense to play at a high level to put that game away, even though they had the big interception, pick sixes going on. But there were, in that game as well, some 50-50 balls that the Notre Dame was winning. They were winning with. So defensively, they're going to trust that secondary to be in the places they need to be in. But if they can't get to Rourke and get pressure on him, the ball's going to be out quick. That's where he's at his best. When the ball is out quickly to their players, they're going to be able to create some separation in due time. But I think the other thing that'll be a big play for him is the tight ends. The tight ends versus the linebackers, I think they can make some plays where it's not always going to be what's happening outside. And then at the end of the day, they got to run the ball. But if it turns into a pass rush drill, if they get down, because I think it'll be tough offensively, the offensive matchup with Notre Dame versus them defensively, there'll be some challenges there. But if this turns into one of those games where Notre Dame is just controlling the line of scrimmage, man, it's going to be – it could end up being a long night for IU. But I do think that they do some things offensively when you watch the film that can give Indiana fans, some hope that they can go in here and come out with a victory. But they have to be able to play clean. They can't turn it over. They can't have special teams plays go against them.
A lot of people point to, when it talks about being positive from a Notre Dame standpoint, a lot of people point to what happened up in Columbus. And I'm like, no, I love what I saw in the Michigan matchup for the same reason. Because I think Notre Dame plays with the same physical mentality that Michigan plays with. I think even defensively, like you said, they might not have the edge rushers that a Michigan might have to be able to get there with the 4. But the physicality that they play, barring that Northern Illinois game, for the most part, Notre Dame's going to play a physical game on both sides of the ball. Marcus Freeman talks about playing with violence. That, for me, is what I look at this thing, and I wonder, in a situation where Cignetti and that offense and their team has been able to dictate, 2 instances they weren't able to dictate and they had to fight it out was Ohio State and was Michigan. That, for me, is an advantage for Notre Dame going into this game, and the depth. Because I know they have the talent. They have some really, I love their players. On the Campbell, West, Kamar, I love their players in the front four. The secondary is smallish. I worry about them because early on when I saw Michigan and Sharon Moore, they came out in 12 personnel, but then they spread them out. And Loveland was having his way with the smaller defenders, the nickelbacks that were on him as he was detached from the line. So Notre Dame has Mitchell Evans. They have those guys. Mitchell Evans got it going in the second half of the season. I'm very interested in seeing how Mike Denbrock, like you said, we know what Al Golden's going to do.
Yeah.
He's going to bring it. I'm very interested in what Mike Denbrock starts to do early in this game, considering he's going up against the top Russian defense.
You know, they've got to. I mean, you look at the way they run the ball. I mean, come on, that's what you got to do, right? You've got to set the tempo, and I think the conditions will be nice and cold and chilly. So I think that's one of the biggest ways to be able to impose your will. What's interesting about the way Indiana plays defense and Aiden Fisher. This is one of those games where Aiden Fisher, he could have anywhere from 13 to 20 tackles in this kind of game. But what he does a great job of being able to read off where his defensive linemen are going, because they kind of have free reign. It's up to the linebackers to fill the gap where, opposite of where that defensive lineman go, where they're going. So, that's one of the reasons when you look at Fisher, he's been able to be so productive and he's been quick and getting downhill and triggering. You mentioned out on the edges, Pond, who is, he's undersized, but he's arguably the best player on that team. He's going to compete. He's going to make plays. He probably plays like he's 6'2", but he's nowhere near it. But so I do like the matchup, man. But I think you're right. You come out and I think Notre Dame has to be able to set the tempo. That's got to be the key. You set the tempo for what you want to do and dictate the game plan there. And if they go back and forth, they go back and forth. But, adding the quarterback into the run game will be a huge part of what they need to do, and trying to put those defenders in conflict to try to make that happen. So, I think like anything in these types of games, I think there's going to be some huge special teams plays, at least 2 of them in this game that turn the tide. The team that doesn't turn it over, because Indiana cannot afford to turn it over, because if they do, it's like I'm saying. I mean, look, Rourke is going to get rid of the ball. He's going to get on. If he gets in a rhythm, he's going to find the open guy. He knows how to read the defense and go where he needs to go. But if they're in a situation where it's a pass rush drill, man, Al Golden's just going to turn these guys loose and let the guys outside do their thing. And, the 50-50 balls that are going to be out there, those 50-50 balls probably are going to lean Notre Dame's way, like they did versus USC. And USC's receiving core is probably better than what Indiana has right now, but those guys are really efficient in what they do.
So who is the guy on offense? You just talk about Fisher on defense. The guy on offense, who's the guy to say if this kid is going? Is it Mitchell? Is it Surratt? Is it the running back? The running back tandem?
Surratt that dude is he's gonna play with the best of them, right? He comes down with some crazy catches, and he's been making great plays all year long for him. But I think it has to be, to me, it has to be at the running back spot, not because I'm an old running back, but just because of what they're going to be asked to do. They have to be able to pick up the blitz. They're going to have to be able to leak out or not necessarily leak out, but be able to chip when there are extra guys coming, so that he has time to throw it down the field. Everybody can point to the quarterback and say that's going to be the guy, but I truly believe that the backs have to be able to understand the blitzes that are going to be coming. Because Notre Dame, all they have to do is look at Ohio State. They're going to see some of those blitzes again. They absolutely are. And they may change it up a little bit, but they're going to be coming. So if you're a back, you need to be slow to go before you get out into a route, because if your quarterback's on his back, it doesn't do you any good to be standing out there 5 yards in the flat wide open when the quarterback's on his back. You've got to be able to protect up front.
How would you describe this Indiana defense? Because I'm watching multiple games this year.
Yeah.
And they run some very interesting things where the left side of the defensive line will be doing one thing and the right side will be running a stunt. And they're bringing the slot, the corner blitz. And you talked about Fisher, fitting gaps. That's going to be an interesting thing with the home run hitters at running back. It's like you might shut Notre Dame down for a nice little period, but then they have two guys that if they get a crease and you don't feel that one gap on that one play, now you're looking at something going 70 yards and the game is totally flipped.
And that's where they've been good. And that's where Indiana has been good at filling those gaps and not giving up those explosive plays. But shoot, Notre Dame is, 80 or 77 10-yard or more plays from the running back. So they're going to come up with those explosive plays. They're going to get them, but they've got to make sure that when the safety has to fill the alley, he knows the alley he needs to be in. Because if he doesn't, you're right, it's over. It's like it's going to be a home run. And nothing's going to be more demoralizing than the weather, the fans going crazy, and then you giving up a big run. It's going to change the entire momentum of the game, and then things get away from you. But that's why this defense has been so technically sound at what they do. They're really well coached, and it's not that they're the most talented group out there, but they understand their assignments and go execute. And they're not going to miss a lot of tackles, but these guys, they can make you miss, right? And they can run through you. So you're going to have to make sure you're bringing the guys to the ground or holding on till your buddies can get there to help you.